Epstein's global network, untangling the logistics of his private jet for years. One aircraft quietly stitched together Jeffrey Epstein's world, not a mansion, not an island, but a private jet, moving across borders, time zones, and legal jurisdictions with remarkable ease. While public attention often fixates on passenger names, the deeper and more disturbing question lies elsewhere. How did this operation function at all? Epstein's private jet was not simply a means of travel. It was a logistical backbone, a mobile environment that connected properties, people, and resources across continents, often beyond the reach of routine oversight. Private aviation operates under a very different set of rules than commercial travel. Passenger screening is minimal. Manifests can be incomplete. Security checks are often handled by private contractors rather than government agencies, and responsibility is spread across operators, airports, and jurisdictions. This system is built on trust, and Epstein exploited that trust thoroughly. Flight records show that Epstein's jet traveled frequently between the United States, the Caribbean, and Europe. These were not occasional trips. They were routine, tightly scheduled, and supported by ground crews who ensured seamless movement from runway to destination. Each flight required coordination, pilots, fuel services, maintenance teams, airport permissions, and customs clearance. None of this happened spontaneously. It required infrastructure and compliance from multiple layers of private and public systems. And yet, despite the frequency and international scope of these flights, oversight remains surprisingly limited. In private aviation, passenger lists are often self-reported. Names can be abbreviated, omitted, or recorded inconsistently. There is no equivalent of a centralized, publicly accessible database like those used in commercial air travel. This meant that over time, Epstein's jet became something more than transportation. It became a blind spot. When flights crossed international borders, customs procedures were frequently expedited. Private terminals allowed passengers to avoid crowded checkpoints. Inspections were brief. Documentation was often processed in advance, relying heavily on the reputation of the aircraft owner and operator. Wealth, in this context, functioned as clearance. Ground operations played a critical role as well. At many destinations, Epstein relied on private hangars and fixed-base operators, known as FBOs, which cater specifically to high-net-worth clients. These facilities prioritized discretion, speed, and client privacy. Staff were trained to facilitate, not question. Luggage handling, transportation from the tarmac, hotel coordination, and security arrangements were all managed quietly, efficiently, and with minimal paper trails. Each successful handoff reinforced a system that assumed legitimacy, and the system rarely challenged that assumption. Maintenance records show the aircraft was kept in excellent condition, serviced regularly, and staffed by professional crews. From an aviation standpoint, nothing about the operation appeared suspicious. That normalcy was the camouflage. Even regulatory agencies faced limitations. Aviation authorities focus primarily on aircraft safety, not passenger behavior. Financial regulators track transactions, but rarely connect them to flight activity in real time. Law enforcement agencies operate within jurisdictions that aircraft can cross in hours. No single entity had the full picture. This fragmentation is critical to understanding how Epstein's mobility went unchecked. Each organization saw only a slice of the operation. Pilots flew the plane. Airports handled arrivals. Customs processed documents. Banks managed payments. None were tasked with assembling the entire puzzle, and Epstein understood that better than anyone. By operating across borders, he reduced the likelihood of sustained scrutiny from any one authority. Questions that might arise in one country disappeared when the jet touched down in another. When allegations eventually surfaced, reconstructing travel history proved difficult. Records existed, but they were scattered across agencies, countries, and private companies. Some logs were incomplete, others were sealed. Some were never required to be retained long-term at all. Time itself became a barrier to accountability. What makes this especially troubling is that the system wasn't broken in a traditional sense. It was functioning exactly as designed, prioritizing efficiency, privacy, and trust for wealthy clients. Epstein simply used it as intended. This raises an uncomfortable realization. If such an operation could function so smoothly for years, relying on standard procedures and legitimate services, then the issue isn't one individual, it's the infrastructure itself. Private aviation offers extraordinary freedom, but in Epstein's case, that freedom came with almost no meaningful oversight. By the time authorities began piecing together the scale of his movement, much of the evidence existed only as fragments, flight logs without context, manifests without verification, and routes without explanations. The jet was gone. The network dissolved. The trail went cold. Today, discussions about Epstein's plane often focus on names and rumors, but doing so risks missing the larger lesson. The real story is how a global logistical system built for convenience and discretion can be leveraged to move people and resources across the world with minimal scrutiny. Epstein's jet was not the crime. It was the vehicle that made everything else possible. And unless the vulnerabilities exposed by this case are addressed, the same infrastructure remains in place, quiet, efficient, and waiting to be used again. Because in the end, the most unsettling question isn't who was on board, it's how easy it all was.